Welcome to another episode of the Candlepower Hour. I'm your host, Mercury, alongside Diego, and we've got Bill on sound and AJ here helping out with the cameras while Dan Moore's out of town. Today, we have Thunder from Down Under, from the folks who brought you backward spinning toilets, kiwi fruit, cute little koala bears, lost crocodile hunters lost in New York City, and the road warrior himself. From Down Under, artist, singer, and visionary, she's here to discuss her music and collaborations, her travels and motivations, and a solo venture ready too. We welcome from Australia my dear friend, Leah Martin Brown.
Yay!
What an intro.
Welcome. Welcome to the show, Leah.
Thank you.
This is an honor to have you.
I'm stoked to be here.
I'm gonna say that because your music impresses us. You are a visionary, and we do look forward to hearing about this story that you gotta talk about. Welcome. We're gonna ask you, like always, where did you start? You're from Australia. You're from the Gold Coast of Australia. What's it about?
Wait, is this the origin story?
The origins of you,
From the
where
beginning,
from
right?
the beginning of you,
Yeah.
what's it like growing up out there? What was it like?
It was honestly, I was always into music. I didn't really feel at home in my town. I'm from a beach town, so everyone's very sporty and beachy, and I did that for a while. I was a lifeguard, but I didn't really feel like it stuck. I always loved to sing and write poetry, and I loved to perform. Wasn't much of a dancer. Tried, wasn't much. And then when I was around 10, I think I first realized I could sing. It's not because I didn't realize I sang something in a music class, and they were like, "Oh, you're a singer." I'm like, "Am I a singer? I didn't know that. Okay, guess I'm a singer." And I went to Catholic school, so if you were in the choir, we always had to go to mass. If you're in the choir, you didn't have to pay attention in mass because you're like, "I have sheet music that I must read while I sing. Oh, I'm comparing notes with the other people, so I'm talking while the priest is because this is boring." So I kind of came up doing choir in church. And when I was about 11, I thought to myself, I really want to write music. I want to be a musician. I want to sing, but I can't do that on my own. I need to play an instrument because I can't sing a cappella all the time, or I can't rely on someone else to always be able to be there to play with me. And what if they don't like the same music I like? I need to do something. So when I was 11, I started playing the guitar, and that's kind of when everything clicked for me. So I had my first kind of public performance when I was about 13 years old. I was in 8th grade. That's the first time I went into a recording studio, and I went from there.
Wow. The recording studio at the 8th grade. What kind of music were you into at 11 years old?
Very similar music to what I'm into now.
So you're a rock and roller were your
Always.
parents rock and rollers?
I would say they were rock and rollers for sure.
They were just Catholic.
Yeah. Well, my grandmother was very Catholic, and Australia is at the time, I haven't been there for a while, so maybe it's not now, but it is still like kind of a Catholic country, and a lot of the private schools are Catholic. So that's just kind of how it ended up, but I would say non-practicing.
So how did you end up in the recording studio at 11? Did you use your
13.
Catholic school at 13?
No, so my mum, I'd been writing songs by that stage and I'd been performing them live, and my mum was really supportive. So she found a recording studio in Brisbane that were willing to have this, little kid, she's only done 1 year of high school, come in and I had a Fender Strat that I still have now, come in and play my songs, just play them through and then go and sing the songs and just have them. And, we call that a scratch track or a demo. It was nothing. It was just me plugged into the board with some verb, playing my 4-chord songs and then singing. But to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. It took all day, and, my mum took me there, and that was, my first experience in a recording studio recording my own music, and I was kind of hooked from then.
Do you still have your recordings?
I do. They're buried on a hard drive somewhere, and I listen to them, and I'm just like, you know what? They weren't horrendous at all, actually. They were pretty good for what
What
they
was
were.
the name of the song? Do you remember the first song you recorded, the title?
There were 4 songs that I recorded that day that I thought were like good enough to record. One was Song for Storm. It was about my dead cat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
One was I can't remember the other ones. I remember how they go, but I couldn't tell you the names for the life of me. They weren't very catchy names.
What kind of music, like you say you were in the same music that you are today, you grew up with rock and roll. again, like what's the city of the Gold Coast? Like what would be the town or the city that you lived in? Is it just called Gold Coast?
Yeah, so I'm from Burleigh Heads, which
Burleigh
is
Heads.
part of the Gold Coast. So the Gold Coast is like the wider town, and one of the suburbs is Burleigh Heads,
Okay.
and that's where I was from. Like,
Were there rock clubs and was there a scene?
no, so there was definitely when I was a bit older, there was an underground metal scene, and that's why I love metal so much, I think. So we're talking very heavy, like full on metal. And there's also a very big acoustic and kind of pop scene and a surf rock wave scene. Nowadays, back there's a bit more of that kind of 90s vibe. But growing up, there wasn't that rock and roll heavy rock scene. That's something that I would listen to on the radio or buy CDs, or I think LimeWire came into play when I was about 15 or 16.
Yeah, the LimeWire days.
LimeWire days.
Okay.
There were one or two clubs, but again, they were very much more of that like underground metal, heavy
What's
metal.
LimeWire?
But you don't know what LimeWire is?
No.
Bill, do you know what LimeWire is? Did you hate LimeWire as a music producer?
I have no clue what that is.
That is what we used to use to download music and not
Wow.
pay for it.
Oh.
You know how old we
Oh.
are, for the love of Pete.
Oh, Napster.
This was like the
Oh,
early
it's
MySpace
like Kaza.
days, like
Kaza now. Okay.
thousands. We used to download music.
Right. Yeah. No. I
Yeah, we know.
Cautious.
Napster.
Sometimes you download and it would be like
Yeah.
stupid, like porno sound, and you're like, "This is not the song that I want."
This is not, or you try and get the music video and you're like, oh, that's not a music video.
Yeah, that was shady.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I never heard of that. But all right. So now, AC/DC obviously is a powerhouse from Australia. What were they like to you? Were they a part of that music that you loved?
Yeah, AC/DC are one of my all-time favorite bands. Growing up, they were my favorite band, the Bon Scott era specifically. My stepdad would drive me to school sometimes because my mum worked a lot as well. And on the days that he drove me to school, he had a cassette tape that was double-sided. One side was Bon Scott and the other was Brian Johnson. And he'd play me a song and then he'd pause it and then he'd tell me the story of the song and the story of Bon and the lyrics and get really deep into it. And I was only 9 or 10 at the time. And so especially, you know, when Bon Scott dies, I'm like, this is heartbreaking. Oh my God. Like, it was very into it. I started listening, and my first album that they bought me of AC/DC was Power Age. And I remember just having it on repeat all the time, and I was just absolutely obsessed, like to this day. Like,
Your parents rocked.
yeah.
Are they still with you, and are you still in touch with them? And
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I have 4 sets of parents, or 2 sets of parents, I guess. I have a mum, a dad, and a stepmom and a stepdad, and they're
That's
all
right.
here. And
Are they in Australia, or some of them? They're all there still.
yeah, all the families in
Okay.
Australia.
There's a lot of artists from Australia that, like, I love the Kingpins. Are you familiar with the Kingpins?
No, I'm not.
They were a really AC/DC style band from Australia. They were kicking ass, going places. Then you got Midnight Oil.
I love Midnight Oil.
Oh, those guys were an amazing band from the 80s. So, you know, Australia has it definitely has a rockin' community that came out of there. And I've never been to Australia. I definitely want to go, especially because of the what really got me into Australia was when Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott played at the big hall in Sydney, the Opera House. It's a very famous concert. It's just one of the greatest shows that I see. But now, getting back to Australia before we come to the United States and the Gold Coast, because we were talking earlier, what is Australia like? What are the kangaroos like? What are
Did you ever fight a kangaroo? I'm kidding. It's not like stereotypical, but yeah.
I can't imagine.
It's a valid question.
It is a valid question.
What are they like? What's the animals that are in Australia are not? We don't have.
I don't
koala
want to
bears.
piss off kangaroos that they're really like violent, right?
I mean,
As cute as they are.
they're very cute. The grey kangaroos are fine. The big red kangaroos you should probably stay away from. But
Red is bad.
Yeah, red is dangerous. But in general, I'd say that they're very chill. They're very tame, depending on where you go. But you don't go near, like, close to them. It's all right if you're, like, 12 feet away from them. But
Guys get drunk and they fight them.
I've seen videos of that.
yeah, that's just some shit that I don't fuck with, to be honest. But people have done that. I've seen the ones of the guy who's saving his dog from the kangaroo as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's
That's
some
pretty
ones
cool.
out there.
Do the toilets really run the other way when you flush them?
Our toilets don't flush the way that yours do. You know, you press the button and yours have the cylinder. We flush ours, and most of them kind of have like this weird like waterfall thing that kind of falls down and
So it's
pushes.
even weirder.
Isn't that kind of like porta potties?
Sort of, but no, I don't. It's weird. It
Like-
depends on the.
Like the ones that flush?
Yeah, I guess
Like
so.
in the studio, like you know the ones that when you're working on a show and they're like a porta potty for the show in a truck and like it has like a flap. Is that,
This
is
doesn't
it
have
like
a
that?
flap. It's water.
Oh.
It's just this big gush of water that kind of just comes down and explodes. It doesn't.
Huh.
You know
Yeah.
how yours just kind of like sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. I'm a fan of.
We're gonna have to go to Australia and check that out.
So it's
I like those. I'm a fan
a
of
little
it.
bit too long of a toilet talk, but have you ever like gone out to your car in Australia and had like a giant like snake in the way?
I've had a spider, not a snake. Luckily, not a snake. But
They
never
don't
a
have
spider.
snakes in Australia.
Yeah, they have like giant.
I heard they do.
Yeah, that's New Zealand that doesn't have.
Oh,
We have all
okay.
the poisonous ones.
Oh, nice. Wonderful.
Venomous, I guess.
Okay.
Venomous.
So now, the United States, what brought you to the United States? School, music? Did you just pack up and leave?
So that's an interesting question. I'd actually finished my school by the time I was invited to come to the States. I had a different band in Australia that was called Lily Rouge, and we were more of like an Evanescence-y goth kind of thing.
Oh, I love that.
It was fun. I used to run around stage in a corset. I don't know how I breathe. Like I was breathing in that, to be
It's
honest.
tough. I've tried it.
Yeah, it's. I can see that on you.
It gives you back support.
Yeah, it does. It does actually. It was very nice. I had lots of boob support too. But no, I co-wrote those songs with another producer in Australia, and we were doing some touring. And I guess I'd put a music video on YouTube. And in December 2013, I received an email from a company called A&R Worldwide, who are out in Burbank, funny enough.
Wow.
And they said, hey, like, we really like your stuff. Who writes the music? And I was like, well, I do. And I co-write with someone. They're like, cool. Would you want to come over to the United States and do a showcase? And I said, sure. When do you want me there? They're like, we would like you here by January 1st. It was December 13th or something.
Oh.
I was like, oh, sick. Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, oh my God. I kind of just, you know, my mum had already read the email too, because it was on my band email and she helped me with the management side of things. And so I kind of sold my car. My uncle, who I'm very close to, because obviously you can't sell a car in 3 weeks, he was like, I will give you the money and you can pay me back when your car is sold. So thanks, uncle. Don't want to mention the name because the others will be like, what? And then I packed up. I landed here on January 1st, 2014, and I was introduced to a man called Victor Murgatroyd, who had actually found Evanescence and A&R'd their first ever album. So that was a dream come true for me, and he became my manager. And I worked with Victor and then the team at A&R Worldwide, who were like, well, we like what you did with this other band, but it's not good enough. You should start something new. And that's when Evol Walks was born. And so they put me in a studio with a producer named Brian Howes, and he and I co-wrote the first EP and several other songs.
What year was that?
2014.
He
Okay.
produces
Yeah.
Nickelback.
Yes, he does. And
Yeah.
Airborne.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what was it like collaborating with him?
It was pretty scary. I was 22 at the time. So the first time I'd been in a professional, like proper next level studio was with my last producer in Australia. And that was difficult. Going to someone like Brian Howes, who again is just another level altogether. It was tough. It was very scary. Brian's the nicest, most wonderful guy. And Jay, who was his engineer at the time, was awesome. But just writing with him, he opened up all of these other ideas that I would never have thought would work. I brought in poems that I was like, oh, I don't know how we can make this work. And one of them became a song called Heartbreaking Woman. And we used most of it already. And he was like, oh, no, you would just be, I'm like, oh, I see that now. And even vocally, he just pushed me to this point that I almost felt like crying in the booth. I'm like, I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl.
Maybe that's how Gwen Stefani came out with the song.
Maybe.
Pushing you,
Yeah,
you know, pulling what you have inside out.
absolutely.
What in the collaborating songwriting process, is that done in the recording studio too, in a big room, or did you sit down in a house? Did you how did you write the music first before you tracked it?
So with Brian had he doesn't live there anymore, I don't think. He had this beautiful house in Studio City in the hills there, and he had his studio attached to that. So the first few days when we were writing, we went into his den, I think you call it here, a den.
Yeah.
And we had the fire going, and we were just sitting
Man
there.
caves now.
Literally a man cave. We just sat there. He had his acoustic guitar. We played some chords. We went over ideas. We kind of hashed them out and put it down. And then we'd jump into the studio and do the scratch track. There was another time it was a beautiful day outside, so we went and sat on his patio near his pool and we wrote like that. So it was always in a room just together, writing it all down, pen and paper. And then at the end of the day, like, quickly, let's do the scratch track real quick so we don't forget this.
Nice. And then that was the birth of Evol Walks.
Yeah, that was.
And so the band members that you used and gathered for the band, are they still in you have a new solo project, but are they still solid, with Evol Walks? Was that the band you took off with, I guess is the question I'm asking.
So the Evol Walks has always kind of been me. I've been working with the same people now since about end of 2015, early 2016. The original guys for that project, they all kind of blew up and went on to different things. And,
the recording project is what you did with them.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there were also Brian played a lot of the guitars. There was also a guy called CJ Taiwaniak who played a lot of guitars as well, who's no longer in the band. I think Ian Ross played a lot of the bass. He used to play for John Five. And then we had my drummer now, his name's Jimmy Lee. He's been with me from the get-go. But yeah, there's if I call them, they're with me, but they're all they're all doing crazy things. My guitarists are on tour right now with Butterside. Like, I think everyone knows Sam Bam Colton. Logan Nikolic is my other guitarist, and then Elliot Larango is on bass, or Nick Diltz is the other bassist, because they're both always touring. So
we got to get Butterside in here next.
You have a nice group of musicians on call.
Yeah,
that come to your that come to you when you need them.
If I'm lucky, because they're all...
And when they're available.
Yeah, because they're all just amazing and doing amazing things.
Well, you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You have great songs. And now you have a new project. Is that an offshoot of Evol Walks? Or
how did you decide to go solo?
So that's a interesting question. I didn't make a conscious choice to go solo. I was living in Stockholm. I moved over there at the end of 2020, and it was about May 2021. And I was writing a new album for Evol Walks. We'd been offered a record contract that had fallen through. So I was obviously incredibly depressed. Also, the Swedish weather was not helping. And I got a phone call from my manager, who is Swedish, Jens Lundberg from Blue Lemon Management, at about 10 o'clock at night. And he was like, I have something for you. And I was like, is it a record deal? And he's like, no, it's a thing. He's like, you're not going to be stoked on it at first, but just sit with it for 24 to 48 hours and then give me an answer. And I was like, okay, what has this man brought me at 10:30 at night? I was really upset. I was like cranky at the time. I was like, well, what is it? And he's like, well, it's a project. It would be a solo project. They want you to front it. There is the potential of a second album, but the catch is the first album's already written. I was like, so I don't get to write the first album? He's like, no, it's already done. I was like, well, I had my whole ego come in then, because I had this whole argument with myself. I was like, oh. And then he's like, it's produced by Mutt Lang and Tony Nielsen, and that's who's written it as well, been part of writing it. And I went, And in my head, I was like, you don't have any fucking platinum records, do you? How's this going for you, Leah? How many record deals have you been given? One, and it fell through. All right. I was like, all right, send me the songs. So, send me the songs, and they were amazing. He sent me the songs, and I was just like, I have to do this.
So at that point, your creative process was like, yeah, I'm original. I write music, but you know what? If this is who's writing it, fuck it.
It was a dream since I was a kid to work with Mutt Lang.
Yeah.
And it came true. It did. You manifested it.
It's mind-blowing.
And you know
seriously.
what? It's beautiful that you had such a great support team, because so many people don't have families. Maybe like one person that supports them if they're lucky in their family. But you had a whole team, your uncle, both sets of parents. And, you had like great managers and people believing in you. And thankfully, no Me Too stories in there either. So, they were all about the art. And that's a wonderful blessing.
What did your parents think when you got that call to go work with Mutt? I'm sure they were blown away.
They really were.
And so at 10 o'clock, that call comes in. How did Mutt Lang hear your music?
So this is there's a guy named Tommy Denander, and he's like the Steve Lukather of Sweden. He plays on everything. He does a lot of work with Alice Cooper, Aerosmith. I had made friends with Tommy Denander back in 2014 or 15 at this same conference that I had been showcasing at. And he's very humble. He doesn't really tell anyone what he does. Like, he's just a really cool guy, and we just got along like a house on fire. And in 2015, Evol Walks had gone over to Sweden to do as part of our European tour. And I'd done some writing with Tommy when I was there. So Tommy had played the guitars on this project because it originally had a different front person, and then it had been shelved, and it had been shelved for eight or 9 years at this stage. And he'd had a word to my manager because the songs had come up, I guess, in his playlist again. And he said, I've got this project. Have you thought about asking Leah about this? Because she'd be great. Wouldn't she be great? Because these songs should be heard. Wow. And that's honestly part of how Mutt Lang heard it, because then Tommy went to Mutt after I'd said yes, and they said, okay. I went into the studio to record the first song from the record. It was obviously an audition. I had to have a few meetings with Tony Nielsen, who was going to be the on-the-ground person that I worked with, because Mutt's obviously in Switzerland. And after all of these meetings, they're like, okay, well, she seems to be a nice person and she seems to be professional, so we'll put her in the studio. And then I guess he loved my vocals, and he said, yeah, this is what we needed. This is what we're looking for. Let's do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
The tracks that you're recording that you did not write, what are they like to you? Or do they fit into with you? Like, have you been able to make them work for you? Like, I can make this, I can make this my signature song.
At first it was a bit difficult because the original artist was more pop, and they had wanted to go more of a pop route, and they really wanted a rock, like a pop rock, but still rock vibe.
Grittier.
Much grittier. So the recordings that I was given to learn off were very pop, and some of the lyrics as well were just much more pop sensibilities than what I would write in the rock sensibilities. So there were obviously parts, and even some things that she did with her voice, like her and I have very different voices. She's got this incredible range where she can do all of these like very pop centric things, which I had never attempted to do before. So it was definitely a learning curve at the first. And again, this was another level again. And I went and came out of these studio sessions being like, I suck. Why am I doing this? These are terrible. But I started recording them in 2021, and it took 2 years to get everything ready. And by the end, I was really able to sit with the songs and be like, yes, that's my character for this song. This is how this fits into me. And even the way that they are recorded now, like they went back and redid the guitars. They did new instrumentation. Even though I wasn't able to write lyrics or melody, I did get to have a say in how the structure of some songs were. We removed certain parts. We took out certain things. We added extra things. I really feel that what is now these songs is definitely a reflection of a different part of me as an artist, and it was a very huge challenge, but an absolute pleasure to be able to work on them.
That's amazing. How are the what's publishing like these days for artists and songwriters?
I honestly don't know. I am not good at music business, and that's why I have a manager. We are trying to get publishing deals at the moment because we have a record labels, but yeah, that's probably not a question.
But your music is registered, all the music is in BMI, and you're members of all that. And I'm sorry?
I'm with APRA.
What's that?
That's the Australian publisher.
Oh, so really?
I think by proxy they use BMI here for me, but yeah, I'm with the Australian Performance Rights Association.
And Australian Performance Rights Association. Okay, interesting. All right. And so now your work with Mutt Lang, you're in the studio with him now, so you have a relationship developed. That must be pretty amazing to work with such a gentleman when he's throwing out ideas to you. I'm sorry. Or have you started working on new material with this project?
The new song you released recently, Boys,
yeah.
Right? When did that release?
So that released March 1st.
Was that That was with him, right?
Yeah, so that was the first song from the previous album.
Previous album.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so what's going on with now with this project?
Okay.
What's the plan?
So we have a full album, I think 12 songs, 13 songs. I'm not sure. It's been so long since I've looked at them. But the next single is going to come out next month. I have a tentative date of May 17th, but I have to get that confirmed. We are going to be continuing to release singles and then the full album. While that's happening, in about middle of next month, May, I will be flying over to Sweden and I will be working on the second album, which I do get to have a hand in writing.
Nice, yeah.
With Tony and Mutt. Tony Nilsson is the other person who's involved, and he's going to be in Stockholm, and I'm going to work with him. Mutt does throw out ideas. He uses my manager as a proxy, so he sent through a song the other week. He's like, I've got the perfect song for Leah, and he just sent me this, and I just listened to it. I was like, Molly wrote a song for me, specifically for me. Oh my god. And I just like sat there for a while, and my manager's like, do you like it? I was like, I can't talk right now. I'm busy having a heart attack.
I'm having a heart attack. That's incredible, you know? It's like I'm blown away. This is so cool. This is so cool. And so now the music that you're writing for the new project, have you already started writing it? And do you have any older music that you're going to include? Like, you think you're going to bring some ideas from the past? And
I've thought about it. I've sent some through already. I have some songs that I've never released, or maybe some that I'd like to fix. I've been writing again a lot of poetry and lots of like verses and ideas and songs. I've been putting a lot of them in my notes app. My usual thing is I just turn up and hope for the best, but for this I should probably like prepare more, because you know,
absolutely, I recommend it.
Well,
Yeah.
you also had a lot of time writing inside during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You came up with a lot of content during that.
Yes, but I've had some severe life changes since we've all had severe life changes, but especially in the last like 6 months, I've had some pretty intense life changes. So I'm like feeling very inspired. I'm like, yeah, sadness, lean into it. So embracing that.
I can transmute this.
Yes.
Label support. What's releasing? How are you releasing these songs? Are you backed with a label or?
Yeah, so I have 2 deals at the moment. One is a distribution deal and one is a label. For worldwide, excluding the Nordics, I'm with oh my.
Wait, why is it excluding the Nordics?
Well, because the Nordics are in the
Vikings have a very weird way of doing music.
Yes, I have oh my gosh, I'm having this blank. Then I shouldn't have this blank because I'm with MGM Distribution and they do all the world except the Nordics. In the Nordics, I'm with Virgin Music / MMS, because my manager is Swedish. I have a whole Swedish team over there, and they really wanted to be on the ground with them because there's a lot that they can do just because they're there. MGM are wonderful, and they were really like supportive, and they're like, cool, you guys can do that then.
Well, speaking of Swedish, would you ever consider throwing in your new album into like the Eurovision contest?
Maybe, because Australia is part of Eurovision.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I don't think Sweden would let me be in Eurovision because I'm not Swedish.
But your producer is.
No, Mutt's not Swedish. He's from Switzerland. But yeah, Tony is. Maybe. But yeah, inte prata svenska, so I don't think they'd be super stoked on it.
How did Mutt Lang get involved with AC/DC? You know that?
No, I don't. I just know he did Back in Black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Highway to Hell.
Mhm.
Amazing. Evil Walks. You guys performed a lot. You did some really good tours. You did a lot of, you've done Europe. Is Evil Walks still, will you still go with that band? Are you still around? Is it still alive, to continue on after this other solo
Is it
project?
hibernating?
Yeah, yeah. Evil Walks is my baby. It always will be my baby, and I have 100% ownership over everything that Evil Walks does, which
Awesome.
is very important to me. So there's a lot going on in the background for Evil Walks. I was releasing stuff. I do have new music, but it is being put on hold for the moment because,
For the obvious reasons.
yeah, for the obvious reasons, and it muddies the waters. But it's never going to be not something that I do.
Yeah. Okay. I want to this festival that you did in Europe. First of all, I want to learn how to pronounce it. It is called it's got a really weird word And I'm looking for the
It's the name of
Pristanik. How do you pronounce
I
that?
have honestly, we would need a
Can I see it?
Polish person. It's the name of the town, but I believe that they now just call it Poland Rock.
Poland Rock.
Back then, it was Pristan. I'm so sorry
That's
if
a
there's
funny
any.
name.
Does anyone Polish?
RZYSTANEK. 250,000 people you played in front of.
Yeah.
My God. So what's the adrenaline like that? How do you feel when you're gonna perform in front of that many people? You nervous, or is it just like a show?
By the time I got there, I wasn't nervous. I think the lead up to the show was nerve wracking.
Do you just kind of like blur out past a certain amount of people anyways?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, when we first, because we opened the main stage at 5 p.m. that day, so we were the first band on that main stage. And when we started, there were maybe 10,000 people there, but it was a very big, and it was as our set went on that more and more people, and by the end of it, it was just. So I think by the time it registered and when we got off stage, like, do you know how many people that we clocked into? I was like, oh my gosh. But at the time I was like, oh, there's a lot of people here, I guess. Oh, well, must be liking it. Like, let's focus on not fucking it up.
Right. And you guys, you've done a lot of shows. You've done shows with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Presidents of the United States, Everclear. That's pretty cool. Who books your shows?
So those shows that you just mentioned were actually with my band Lily Rouge in Australia, and I booked all of them. Except for when we played with Chili Peppers and things, it was on a festival called the Big Day Out, and we were reached out to by the local music network who were putting us on that leg of that tour. But yeah, usually I book all our shows.
Okay. And so getting back to Los Angeles, you're here. What got you you bounce around, you go to Europe a lot. What took you to Europe that you moved over there? Because you were living here and you moved over there. Was that?
So it was a few different things. Obviously, we had the pandemic, and I left LA in September 2020 because when the riots happened, they were right outside the front of my house, and I was like, this is a bit too intense for me. I think my dog and I are just going to go chill in Australia till this is over. So I flew home and I was in quarantine because they made us do that ridiculous quarantine. So I was locked in a hotel room for 2 weeks. My manager called me and was like, hey, so you know how we talked about you doing that songwriting trip to Sweden and it's been put on hold for like 8 months because there's been a global pandemic? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, you can come now. I was like, I'm in quarantine right now. If I leave quarantine and I leave the country, I have to come back and do quarantine. Do I really have to come right now? He's like, it would be advisable. I was like, okay. So I got out of quarantine. I was home for like 10 days. I went to Sweden and everything was going really well. The reason I ended up staying there for so long is because I actually met my ex-partner when I was there. And so as well as writing all of the music and working on Evol Walks and getting this project, I wanted to stay so I could explore where that relationship took me at the time.
Okay. What do you write usually on your guitar mostly? Do you write music in your head and then transpose it to a guitar? How do you write your music?
do you use your phone notes?
I do all of that. So sometimes I'll just be playing my guitar and I'll come up with a chord progression or a riff. Sometimes I'll write just a whole song, melody, lyrics, and guitar, like as I'm going. There's a song called The Other Side. I had a dream and I woke up and I was like, oh, and I wrote the chorus to that came to me in my dream, and like the way it sounded with the kind of weird harmonic minor and everything, I was like, this is what it needs to be like, and I wrote down notes. Sometimes, the Notes app, I'll be sitting in somewhere in the car, I'll be like, oh, that's a good idea. Sometimes I just float into the studio and hear an idea, I'm like, oh, and I'll sing over the top. It really depends. I'm a bit of a chaotic creative when it comes to that.
Well, you're an up-and-coming rock star, clearly. Was it really hard for you to do your art as well as have a relationship? Like, we're always hearing males' perspectives on that lifestyle. Can you share a little bit of yours as a woman, as a rock artist, as somebody who travels a lot and has to be in studio? What is your experience trying to hold a relationship during that?
So the relationship that just ended was about just over 3 years, and that was probably the most stable relationship I've ever had. It was very good. He was very understanding, but I think not being in the industry, it was very hard on him because obviously music will always come first, and that's hard. Like, I understand that that's hard. Prior to that, I didn't have the best luck. I just probably didn't pick the right people, but it was a bit challenging because I think there were, if you're not a secure person, I think, not even coming from a man or a woman standpoint, but if you're in the same industry as your partner and you perceive that they're doing maybe better than you, when maybe then, maybe you're not. Like, some people just, they're getting opportunities. They're like, oh, I wanted that. There can be a bit of jealousy there, and there can be a bit of like an issue, and like, well, you need to like put you in your place kind of thing. And that's been something I have experienced, not with my last partner. My last partner is a beautiful human being. But yeah, I think he probably found it quite hard that I was like, I know we had plans to go to Croatia, but I have to cancel because I have to do a music video. I'm so sorry. Like, that's shitty. I know that's shitty, and I recognize that. And I was very lucky that he was around. So
A woman in a leadership role as yourself, songwriter, producer, in charge of your own situation. How do you find it as a woman to deal in this world? Has it changed? Is it still run by men? Are you able to assert your authority as you are entitled to? Or do you find it a little bit harder still? Is it difficult for women?
I think it's much easier now than it used to be. When I first started, obviously I've been doing this since seriously been trying to do it since I was about 13. And I definitely notice a difference now to then. I have this memory of when I was about 17 and a half and I studied at university for music as well. And one of my lecturers at the time, he had like a little local record label, and he was an engineer and things like that. And he was considered to be, quite, and he was talking to everyone about what they did and, what kind of genre do you play? And I was like, well, I play rock and roll. And he's like, well, you probably shouldn't, because men don't want to hear girls singing rock and roll. Like, you'd probably be more successful if you tried to do something a bit more acoustic. And I was just like, I'm going to fucking show you, aren't I?
That guy sounds like he was stuck in like the 70s.
Yeah.
Because a lot of rock star women came out in the 80s. For him to be saying this in the past 2000.
Right. Well, Australia also, I find it is getting better, but Australia, compared to the US, I do think has a slightly more like heavy on the patriarchy. Like, there is a bit more of an old school view in some places of women. There is a little bit more misogyny. And I think that's just because we're a young country and we're still kind of growing. It's much better than it used to be. But definitely I have found that, I don't know, once I started dyeing my hair red and being kind of not
Louder.
yeah, being louder. I think most people assertive. Yeah, I don't really run into that problem anymore. Although it was very funny. Last time I was home, I was at a gig, and my mum loves to chat to everyone. She likes to talk to people. She's much more social than I am, and she was talking to someone who's like, he played in a band, like a cover band, and made good money, like probably makes more money than I do. But he was like, oh, and so what do you do? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm in a band. He's like, oh, well, maybe you should come out and see one of our shows someday. Maybe you can pick up a few tips from us. And he like played at the local pub, and I was like, of course, I would love to. It's like, oh, are you just starting out then? I was like, I'm 30 something. I'm not just starting out. I was like, yeah, no, I've been in it a while, but I was just being really nice to him. And he was just like the level of like
Awesome.
The ego.
yeah.
But you sing cover band songs, sir. Like,
Were you able to put him in his place?
Well, I don't like to, because I just, there's no need to be
It's
rude.
fun sometimes.
I did a little bit, but I don't, like, at the end of the day, like, I know who I am and what I've done, and I don't need to put idiots in their place. Like, they can use Google to put themselves in their own. But it was kind of funny because he was really getting my nerves. I was like, Leah. And I was like, no, it's fine. He's like, do you have any shows coming up? I'm like, oh, no, but, I've played a few. He's like, oh, well, what's the biggest crowd you've ever played to? And I was like, oh, it wasn't that big. It was like 250,000. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, 250,000. And he was like, oh, where was that? I was like, oh, it was in Poland on our European tour. And you kind of just saw the brain going, oh.
I love it.
Oh. He was like, oh. I was like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. I was polite about it though, because I was like, I feel like a dick. I don't like doing stuff, but he was just getting on that last nerve.
Sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah.
That's great. I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Gun and a Crucifix.
Yes.
I like that song.
Thank you.
What's it about? I mean, it is what it is, but how did you get inspired to do that?
So
It's very American.
it is very American, and So I don't really, everyone who's close to me knows what the song's about. I get a bit worried as an Australian in America talking about the meaning of this song because I don't want to get absolutely lynched by people who believe in, what is it, the Second Amendment. But it was kind of like, you know, gun and a crucifix. It's the dichotomy between like extreme religion and also like extreme kind of fetishization of gun culture.
United States, America.
Yes, or specifically in the like the middle areas.
Right.
The
The
state.
flyover states.
Yes, which, you know, I understand everyone's culture is different. I'm from Australia. Like, it's just very, and at the time, I think when I wrote it, there had just been a very heavily televised mass shooting. And I got very angry, and that's kind of why I wrote it. Like, that was the underlying message. And, you know, that's kind of why. That's not the story I put in the press releases, and
Right.
this is probably the first time I've ever discussed openly anywhere that's not like that's
You'd be
being
surprised
reported.
how many people think that way. Just because those people seem to be very loud about it doesn't mean that like the rest of the country or the rest of the world doesn't perceive like how toxic it is.
Yeah, it's just a very different thing, and I living here and seeing it, it's, you know, it's just it's a culture clash that I will never get over. So
It's a culture shock.
it is.
You know, when I was traveling abroad and we were building a show out in Korea, I was in Seoul for 3 months. And when I was flying home, I went to the theater to say goodbye to my crew. And the funniest thing was when the crew chief, he put his 2 hands on my shoulders. And here I am on the other side of the world. And he said to me, Diego, when you go back to LA, you be careful. You know, it's just, and I was going home to where I feel no threats when I'm home in LA. I know how dangerous it is. It's the hood. Everywhere's the hood, but it's the perception of the United States from abroad. What is the Australians? What is your take on the United States today? We don't have to get too political, but what
It is a much more peaceful country, isn't it?
Australia, yeah, I think Australia is like, we obviously have our issues. There's, you know, there are things that happen in Australia. I just think overall, people love America. They get very excited about America, or, you know, they think it's exciting. But I think there is that view of when it comes to the healthcare and maybe the attitude towards guns and things, we are a bit confused. But
right. A lot of us here are too.
Yeah.
Very confused.
But then there's so many great things as well.
Yeah.
So it balances out.
Well, technically, Australia, you know, it's not like they're gunless, right?
No, we have guns.
But they're responsible with it. And that's the difference
They're
that
nice
people
guns.
don't understand about it, right?
Well, we just have different laws surrounding guns. I think it's a lot more difficult to get one, and like
It's safer.
It does appear to be safer. Again, like, it's not something that I speak on a lot. Guns terrify me, to be honest. I went to a shooting range once because my friend was like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be really fun. I was like sweating. I was just like, he's like, why are you so sweaty? I'm like, because everyone here has a gun. They could kill me. They're like, it's safe. We're at a shooting range. I'm like, I don't feel safe.
You're trusting a lot of strangers, yeah.
Right. But I think that's the thing. I don't trust people. So not trusting people at all, and then being in a room full of strangers that you also shouldn't trust who have like weapons is like, that's a lot.
It's a little weird.
But that's realistic because you never know. People can just snap out of nowhere. You don't know them.
I snap a lot.
You don't know them, and even then, people you know can snap out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was fun. Like, I enjoyed the experience, but I was like, I don't need to. Let's go to a private. We can go to a private gun range next time. That was too much for me.
So the United States, what about when you came to LA and the Hollywood scene and the music scene? Your thoughts about Hollywood, and then you landed in Hollywood. What, was it what you were thinking?
It was so funny. So I came the year before I moved here for my 21st birthday. My mum took me to LA briefly, Las Vegas, and a few other places. And we stayed out in Santa Monica. We didn't know really where to go. So I was like, LA's fine, but like, what am I going to do here? I didn't think about it. And so when it was time to move here, it happened so quickly that I didn't really process it. And my boyfriend at the time made me watch Boys in the Hood. He's like, this is where you're moving. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And he's like, yeah. So I'm like terrified. I was like, that can't be where, like, really? And he's like, yep. Yeah, I know all about it. I was like, and I get off the plane. I was like, it's not like this at all. I've been lied to. And I'm so happy I was lied to, because that would have been horrific.
That's funny.
I love LA. LA is my favorite place.
A lot of people have that perception of California and the United States, you know, where it's like, oh my God, it's scary, or I don't want to go to LA, the hood, boys in the hood,
I think
East
most
LA.
people hear LA and they think, oh, you see movie stars at every corner.
You know what, though? When somebody comes to LA and they don't know LA, what I get is they don't ever want to leave. You know, I mean, LA rules. I love it. I love LA.
Absolutely. LA is amazing.
But don't listen to him. Don't come here.
I think it's the greatest city. It's the greatest city in the
Yeah.
world. The music scene has definitely changed from back in the 80s. We come from the 80s. We're the 80s generation of rock and roll. The 80s Whiskey A Go-Go, the Troubadour, the Viper Room had just started. The scene was absolutely there. Everybody talks about the Sunset Strip the way it used to be. It was fun. It was great times. I'm a little opinionated on where music went in that decade. Getting back to your music, I find that your music is such an awesome step up because it has really crafted songwriting that, to me, it impresses me, because to me, rock and roll songwriting needs to come back. We've sort of dropped the ball. My generation sort of got a little bit too carried away with the guitar hero and the guitar god stuff, and we sort of walked away from the craft of composing, arranging, producing, you know, crafting music. When I heard your music, I was like, wow, this is really, really good professional music. And you proved yourself with it, because now you're going to Sweden to work with Mutt Lang. He gave you a call. You know, people are discovering you. You know, you were able to work with Brian Howes. You collaborated with him. I'm praising you right now. I'm just sort of just like offloading. I'm impressed. I'm just you're definitely
You got an amazing repertoire.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
This is really cool. And so I guess you're going to do this project. You're going to release this album. Do you hope to tour with this? Do you hope to take this out on the road?
Yes, at my core, like my passion, obviously my passion is music, but my favorite part is playing shows. Like if I could
Live.
Yeah, live. If I could be on a stage all day, every day, for the rest of my life, that is where I would be happy. Like go to the studio in the morning, record new music and then play it at night. So I really would love to tour with this. I'm hoping that I get to. I don't see why I wouldn't, but not unfortunately. We're just at the beginning of this ride, as my manager likes to say. So we're going to have to probably wait a few singles before that opportunity comes up. But that's definitely what I would like to do. I don't want to do a studio project. I've never been someone who can do a studio project, because I'm just like, I just want to get out and play. Like that's where I belong.
Do you like television? Do you want to take your act to television? Do you feel the power of television could help your career?
Honestly, I've never thought about it, but I mean, sure, that would be fun. Like, I think it would be cool.
I say that because so many bands take advantage of television and their careers blow up. A lot of bands
You
don't
mean,
like
selling your songs.
they think it's selling out. You know, a lot of people's like, you know, for instance, American Idol. That is a television show that changed the course of the music industry. People can deny it, they can hate it all they want, but it definitely changed the course of the music industry. That's television. You know, Star Search. In the 70s, there was the gray whistle stop, the English shows. You know, there was the Don Kirshner's rock concert. Iron Maiden took advantage of television every time they could. But for some reason, a lot of musicians, rock and rollers, don't see that I'm a television guy, you know? And so I think that you should definitely look into that, take advantage of it, and see how far it goes. So definitely don't pass up an opportunity to perform on TV.
Oh no, I would.
Don't ever. You know, if American Idol ever says, come over and perform, drop everything and go.
Just do it.
You know, it's the exposure, you know, and
it's real exposure.
Yeah, actual exposure.
It's massive exposure. And that's what, you know, television is the most popular medium on the planet. You know, this is not about television or me. I was just giving you some advice. What kind of advice do you have for artists and people, women even mostly too, who want to take the bull by the reins? What do you advise?
I think just do it. Believe in yourself. Make sure that you surround yourself with people that are going to be truthful with you, but also support you. And don't be afraid to always be learning. Like you should always be learning. If you get to a stage where you are like, no, I know everything, it's like, oh, that's when you're done.
Yep.
Yeah. And if someone feels wrong, they probably are. That would be my advice.
Nice. Leah, this was a very nice conversation. We really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, we wish you the best in your career. And as far as our organization, we are at your service, whatever you need.
I can't wait to see what the next 5 years hold for you compared to the last 5 years.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and thanks for having me. And
This is great.
you guys too.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good night, everybody. This is the Candlepower Hour signing up. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Sit, Lulu, sit.
Powered by
Electric acid.